Hey, hello all, welcome to Science Books Review. In this video, I am going to give a full breakdown on Wheel of Time series. By the very end of this video, you would get enough information on whether you can able to try this series or not. And reviewing a book or a movie is entirely and subject to opinion, so don't take my words too seriously. It is only my personal opinion. Do watch 2 to 3 other booktubers in order to come to a conclusion on whether you can able to try this series or not. And then here in this video I gotta need to separate this into 5 segments: what the series has been all about and why it is good, why it is bad, and then I will give my personal opinion on whether you can able to try the series or not, and then I will give my personal suggestions and tips which can be able to speed up your reading journey. And this video doesn't contain any spoilers, so you are free to watch. Without further ado, let's get into the video and what the series has been all about. This series does follows just Tolkien's template. By the very start of the storyline, we are introduced to 3 main characters, Perrin, Matt, and Radalthor. And one day they do met with an mysterious witch, and at that night their family has been attacked by Dark One's forces, and they do came to know that one of these 3 is going to be the Dragon Reborn, with whom the fate of this world would be decided upon, and he got a need to face the Dark One at the very end of the time. And the other 2 characters are the most powerful taverns in the world, with whom the pattern does revolves around. So in order to safeguard their family, they do decided to leave their village, and they do encounter a lot of inappropriate circumstances. Whether they do manage to get out victorious, you gotta need to figure out by reading this. And this series is somewhat really very long, which is a 14-book series with an 800 pages on average. The first 11 books has been written by Robert Jordan, the original author, and then he does passed away, and the next 3 books has been written by Brandon Sanderson. I mean, the plot has been narrated by Robert Jordan. Brandon Sanderson does came in and executed that. And the series is somewhat really very long, right? Because it does have 14 books with an 800 pages on an average. But on the contrary, the series is actually really very short. Because the entire 14 book time span does explains the 2 year time span here. You would feel that when it is being described as 14 books, you would think, okay, this series is going to cover nearly a 10 year or a 15 year time span, right? But that's not the case here. It just covers only 2 year time span. The author is somewhat really very descriptive. That is why this series is really very long. So now let's get into the next segment. Why this series is actually good. If someone asks me why you do love A Song of Ice and Fire, then I would talk about its plot. If someone does ask me about why you do love Joe Abercrombie books, then I would talk about the dialogues and the characters. On the same way, when someone just asks me why you do love Wheel of Time series, then I would definitely talk about its moments here, because Robert Jordan's writing style does pay for the moments to be elevated really very well. He does describe a really very flat storyline throughout the book, but the very end he does give an biggest moment in the series which can be able to have a separate place in our heart. It's not like twists, okay, twists or a battle sequence. Even small moments like when the character finally does standing up against the Dark One, which can able to give one somewhat and really very separate feel, which I can't be able to determine right now. If someone does ask me about name the top 10 favorite moments in the series, then I would at least give 25 moments, which because this series does have a lot of these things. So yeah, that is how the plot narrative is been. So yeah, I would say Wheel of Time series has been defined for its moments. And the second thing I love about the series is the final 3 books are Brandon Sanderson or the heart of the series, to be honest, which straight away makes the whole series multiple times better. I mean, it is somehow really very unfortunate for Robert Jordan being passed away before completing a series. It's an emotional part. Writing an 11 books with an 800 pages on an average, but you can't be able to get to finish the series. Is somewhat a really very terrible feeling. But I do think Brandon Sanderson and narrative does manage to elevate the series on a whole next level, and he does manage to give an even finer input than Robert Jordan, to be honest. And every moments and every plot lines thus started to get elevated on a whole next level, whether about the characters, whether the plot line, whether the writing style, everything has been really very good about Brandon Sanderson, about the final three books. I have a couple of flaws here and there, but overall, I gotta need to say I'm really very much satisfied with Brandon Sanderson narratives on the final three books of the series. And the next thing which I would talk high about is this series does have the perfect ending, to be honest. And I haven't tried a lot of series by now. I just read only 57 books by the Memory of Light. So I am not exposed to a lot of series, but with I have read mainly Song of Ice and Fire and the Joe Abercrombie books and Harry Potter series. Among all these, I do think Wheel of Time does have the perfect ending because I didn't see this end coming at all. Even though it has been hinted and has been described in the earlier books, I can't be able to connect to it somehow. And all the ending which does fell in place really very perfectly. And I do thought Robert Jordan would follow J.R.R. Tolkien's type of narration by just concluding a series by destroying one force, and it can be able to make the world in to live in peace and harmony. But Robert Jordan does took an alternative approach, and he does gave a really very realistic ending, to be honest. And I really very much loved the ending. So I do think more than 99% of the people who have actually completed the Wheel of Time series would agree that the ending of the series is about really very perfect, and many of them wouldn't have seen this one coming at all. So yeah, I'm 100% guaranteed by the very end you would feel that this series is worth the watching, worth the reading, just because of the end. So the next thing is Robert Jordan is an architect in his narration. So he's not a god. I mean, I'm slightly frustrated with George R. R. Martin's works on A Song of Ice and Fire. He didn't manage to come up with the next book for nearly 12 years by now. But Robert Jordan's writing is somewhat an architectural way. He predetermined everything which is going to happen even at the very end before he does started the writing the series. I do think so. He does hinted about how the series is going to end way back in the first book itself, which is somewhat really very awesome. There are the foretelling aspects of the prophecies has been handled way better compared to the all the other books here, and he does driven all these characters to that specific portion really very well. I mean, if you do see how you're gonna need to end the series, you would structureize all the storyline in the perfect way, right? So yeah, I do seen there are a lot of people that does mention that this series is somewhat really very good on a reread, and yeah, that is a somewhat really very awkward to note because I'm not at all ready to read reread the series anytime soon. But yes, many does mentioned that when you do start to read the first book after you have completed reading the series, it does started to feel really very different on how the characters does progressed from a very small place on a very high note. And yeah, I do think this is a really very interesting aspect. Many do mention that Wheel of Time series is worth the reread, and yeah, I got a need to say they are true in some regards. So yeah, that's all the reasons why I do love this series. And let's try to be critical right now. And let me explain why the series is actually bad. I mean, of all the series I have read till date, Wheel of Time does have the most frustrating and the boring characters among all the other fantasy series because all these characters' motive is been ill-defined. For the 1/3 of the starting of the book series, we didn't even know what this character's motive has been all about. Everyone does started to run away from their responsibilities. So after that only every character does started to get into the function, and they just started to feel like a man. And even apart from the five main characters in the series, I can't be able to truly love any of the characters being out there. Everyone started to feel really very artificial. They didn't have any personal motivation. They are you can able to categorize every characters into pure and evil here, and I don't love these types of character. I don't want stereotyping the character here. I do love to read a complex character who are extremely flawed in their decision but still striving for the good. I do love to read these type of characters after trying the Joe Abercrombie's First Law universe. So that is very much missing here, and I just started to feel all these characters are really very bland. Even the top three characters or boring at some point in time. I do have a lot of flaws with these characters too. For example, I didn't love Perrin's love potion, and I didn't love Igwin's ideologies and Nynaeve's weird nature among all these other characters, and I didn't specifically love Matt's plotline. And I do love every aspects around this character, but the plotline is somewhat really weak. And Randall Thor, for the first five books, I do hated this character to be honest. And then his character just started to take an U-turn and he just started to get progressed. But the very end, I would say his characters is somewhat really very notable among every fantasy series. But on a whole, I got to need to say that I'm disappointed with a lot of character and they are really very annoying at times. So, and the next thing why the series doesn't work really very well is the evil character aren't being structured really very well here, and except one, which I mean, every series does have some exceptions, right? Except one character, I do hate that every evil characters out here, and the evil characters aren't threatening. By the very start of the series, you do have one really very high hopes for all these characters, but after time to time, they do started to look like a clowns. They didn't have an actual purpose, and they really very felt awkward on many circumstances, and if the evil character got a need to be threatening, they got a need to have a provided a big task, right? And the major amount of the series, we didn't even know what these characters all been up to, and we didn't manage to get any POV characters from them. So, which does makes the series somewhat really very downgraded in my eye. If we manage to get any POV chapters from two to three characters out there, then it would have made the series and elevated the series on a whole next level. So that is another discomfort for me. And the evil characters and the main characters overall, the characters in the series aren't been written really very well here. And the next thing is many would say being descriptive is an problem with the Robert Jordan narrative style, but I gotta need to tend to differ upon that because of this descriptive writing style, we can able to manage to get a lot of moments in the series. Being descriptive is not at all a problem, but unnecessary plot, that's a huge issue here. There are a lot of plot lines which does started off from the book number 5, where you just started to feel like they are really very unimportant to the storyline. For example, let us take the Van Luca show or the Shadow Isle plotline, or else the politics in Camlin. All the storylines doesn't add anything to the storyline at all. I'm extremely frustrated with all this narration, and one of this character named Elaine, her chapters been written really very odd way. I didn't manage to find anything useful among that character, and all the plots been revolving around some of this character are extremely frustrating to read, and you straight away started to feel like they are really very unimportant to the storyline, and you won't give much importance to them, and the story also doesn't need them. I don't know why Robert Jordan does gave a lot of importance to some of these aspects, and yeah, the middle portion books are really very weird to note. I mean, the books from the seventh book and the 11th book is really very downgraded, terrible to be honest. And so, yeah, you gotta need to be careful. So, yeah, I don't want to get too personal with it, but yeah, there are a lot of unnecessary plot line being incorporated here, and there are certainly a big issues being out there. And the next thing is many people does often make this as a complaint here. Um, Robert Jordan does uses a lot of weird fetish elements in the storyline. I mean, I'm not a little bit hesitant to read all the note scenes or the sex scenes in the storyline at all. I have read the Song of Ice and Fire, but the Dothraki custom is been described in a really very awkward way because and they do manage to have a custom of having the sex on a public. I mean, even while reading all those things, I didn't have any problems out there because George is trying to convey that these people are ruthless savages. So I can able to understand that in order to term and stereotype all these characters, you got to need to have that specific sequence. But here I mean, he does use all these elements just for fun. I mean, he does make the characters nude in front of the crowd or much more pure stuffs or the punishments. Everything is somewhat really very absurd to read, to be honest. And I got you gotta need to tolerate a lot of things here. And he is somewhat really very old-fashioned writer, so he does uses a lot of punishment which is being given in his childhood way back in the 1950s or 1960s. So you can't able to relate to all these aspects, and you do started to feel like uh, I don't know how I got a need to mention those words. So yeah, I already just violated a lot of YouTube policies, to be honest. So yeah, there are a lot of weird notions being out there. So I gotta need to take a back here. So the next thing which I do found it's somewhat a discomfort here is Robert Jordan is somewhat in a traditional fantasy author, and a lot of the words he used in the series or in being used in our real life incidents. If you do have English as your primary language or your mother tongue, you don't have any difficulties reading these words. But I'm from India, and I do have a lot of difficulties understanding a lot of chapters here. So yeah, this is somewhat a terrible discomfort for me. So do decide for yourself. You gotta need to be really very knowledgeable in English language in order to read this thing. But yeah, it is not as complex as Joe Tolkien's narratives or Stephen King's books, but still there is some kind of difficulties being involved out here. So now let's get into my personal opinion on whether you can be able to try the series or not. I would suggest no. I mean, this series does require a lot of time commitment, to be honest. You do require 500 hours in your time period in order to complete the series. I mean, 500 hours, just imagine. You gotta need to spend a year time span of your entertainment in order to complete the series. I mean, that's not actually what the time is being actually spent on here. Uh, I mean, the middle portion books, like the 7th to the 11th book, are really very terrible. Imagine yourself, you just came home from a 10-hour long shift and you are just meeting over all your functions of your family, and then you got a need to relax yourself, and you do see Crossroads of Twilight book is been sitting in front of you. I mean, you would have easily been sidetracked by the series and by the small part you would feel burnt out and you do started to feel like whether you would start to go for the alternative option by watching a series or watching for movies or scrolling through mindless things on Instagram. I mean, when the plot is not actually that convincing, you would often easily be in sidetracked. So you got to need to be careful about that. Investing in the series is just needs a lot of time commitment. You got to need to be really very patient, but at the very end, you got to need to say it is not actually worth it. I mean, it's really very hard for me to actually talk anything bad about this series, to be honest. But practically, I think this series is not actually worth the time investment. But yeah, the final three books are really very good, and this series does have a perfect ending. By the very end, I would I would say that you won't be disappointed. Of that, I am sure. But on a whole, I think this is not worth the time has been actually been invested. I can't able to just say my personal opinion. I gotta need to give some suggestion on where you can actually stop the series. Try the Eye of the World book, and I'm damn sure it is not. You won't love this. And then try the second book of the series, The Great Hunt. If you do genuinely love the book, or else if you didn't have any discomforts while reading that Great Hunt book, I would suggest you to go on and try this series on whole, because the first 150 pages of the Great Hunt book are somewhat really very trash, and the ending is being described really very well. If you don't have any difficulties going through all these phases, then yes, you are pretty much ready to try the entire series. But yes, you need to give a time commitment here. But if you manage to love the Great Hunt on a large extent, I think you can able to reach the very end of the series. Many people does mention that you gotta need to try the Dragon Reborn and the Shadow Rising in order to feel the true essence of this series. But I gotta need to tend to differ from that, because the third and fourth book of the series are really very good. If you do stumble upon a reading one of the best book you have ever read in your life, then obviously your thoughts would feel like, okay, then I would spend some other time to get into the series, and you would start to feel, okay, I can able to complete, and then you would stumble upon the fifth book of the series, Fires of Heaven. If you do have any difficulties out there, do stop there itself. Okay, it's it's okay to turn back. Okay, and I mean, I got a need to have took that decision, but I still continued on in the series because I do love the sixth book. And when I do reach the seventh end of the seventh book, I just started to feel like, okay, I have already read the 50% of the series, so why not? And the final three books are actually good, so let me force myself for the another four books. And those four books are a hell of a big time. I do spend nearly 3 months reading all these four books. So yeah, it's okay if you don't love the fifth book, turn back there itself. It's totally fine to turn back from reading a really very epic series, to be honest. And yeah, that's all about the review. And then I want to give you some of the tips which can be able to speed up your reading journey. And first of all, try to find a companion for your Wheel of Time reading journey. I don't have anyone to talk to about this book. That is why I actually started to do videos on the YouTube channel. So if you do have any companion, you wouldn't have any difficulties reading the series, and there would be someone who would be always there to push you upon, so which can be able to make things easier. If you don't have anyone like any reading companions, if you are from Asia, you would probably don't get a lot of reading companions. So I would suggest you to join the Reddit fan page, which I would give you a link in the description. Do have a conversation. Do share your opinions among the fan page, so that you won't feel lonely while reading the series. And Wheel of Time series fans are really very helpful. So I think you can be able to join the page if you don't have any companions. And the next thing is, don't start the Wheel of Time series by thinking that I will read the book from A to Z. There are a lot of times you would feel that some of these chapters are really very unnecessary to the plot line, so you gotta need to skip them. But how you can manage to skip them without figuring out what's been actually happened out there? There is a lot of ways to do that. The one thing is the Phantom website. I will give the link in the description. Do save that link, and do look for, if you want to skip some of the chapters, do have the short summary from the Phantom website, which can be able to help you, and it can be able to summarize the whole chapters within a 2 to 3 paragraph, which can be able to save on a lot of time. So while the nature of the reading itself, you can be able to tend to understand whether the chapters are really very important to you or not. So yeah, the next thing is the Wheel of Time companion app. I mean, this series does have a lot of characters. There are nearly 2,700 named characters in the series. So it is really very hard for you to keep in track of everyone. So I would suggest you to download this app so that you can click on what the book you are actually reading. And if you don't know the past of the specific characters being introduced in the series, do click on this character names. You can manage to get a short summary of this character, so that which can be able to help you in this reading journey. And be careful, don't google any of these characters of it on the chrome search box, because which can be able to spoil the future of the series. So be careful about that. If you do have any difficulties while knowing all these characters, do check on these websites. If you do want some magic elements being actually been answered, then do check on the fandom website. Okay, and the next thing is, which I don't want to name here, this is somewhat an psychological aspects. And that thing is, now most of you people would buy the Wheel of Time entire box set, right, in order to complete the whole series. I mean, it is really very cheaper in order to try the whole box set, and I won't blame you. And do try to have the next book you are going to read on your shelf, which can be able to give an slight psychological benefit, which can be able to speed up your reading journey of the specific book. Okay, and I just forgot to mention this one. Do adopt a multiple mode of reading. Do have a soft copy on your computer, and do listen to the audiobooks, and do have a physical copy on your hand. And do try to cover this series on all these aspects, which can be able to be really very helpful to your mind. Because if you just only have one physical copy in your hand, and you are going through all the phases and all the lines, you would feel somewhat really very burnt out. So do have a multiple mode of reading. In fact, the how I do manage to get to the very end of the series is, I usually go for an 1 hour walk in the morning and evening. At these times, I do started to listen to the audiobooks, and that is how I do manage to get to the very end at this quick time span. And I would suggest the website, the audiobooks for soul, which can able to give you all these audiobooks for free. I mean, I think it is legit to suggest these things to you, and to have a physical copy in your hand. And yeah, switching from all these modes, which can be able to make you feel really very better while reading this series. I just forgot to mention that I actually finished recording this video. Then I do wanted to suggest this thing. So yeah, and yeah, that's all about the video. And yeah, I forgot to mention about the product which I do have actually bought. And I do bought the latest version, and this is not being published in the Indian subcontinent right now. It is been available on the website for the 1.5 years. While I actually bought this one, I do bought this box set for nearly 5,800 rupees, which does sums up to nearly $75 on an haste. So yeah, I have a lot of difficulties with this book, and they made the pages really very thin, so you can be able to see the contents on the beforehand page. So if you don't have money as a problem, I would suggest you to go for the hardcovers. So yeah, that's my personal suggestion. So yeah, that's all about this video. Hope you guys all have enjoyed this. And yeah, it's just a somewhat and really very emotional departure from me about from the Wheel of Time series. I do started to feel really very lonely, and I can't able to read any of the series right now. I started to miss the series on a whole, and nothing excites me, and I'm somewhat really very bland right now. But even in this video, I didn't give my best. So yeah, I'm still figuring out what fantasy series I can able to delve myself into. So yeah, I hope you guys all have enjoyed this. Do comment on your thoughts on this video, and do mention your opinion on the Wheel of Time series. It would be nice to know you. And We'll meet you soon with another video on the next week. Until then, tada, bye bye. Happy reading to you all. Cheers.